It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James and welcome to the show. Today we'll look back at Fulham's win on penalties away at Wycombe Wanderers. Goodness me, we made that much tougher than it needed to be. But we are through to the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. By now, you listening to this will know exactly who we're facing in the last eight. We're still in the dark, but we're just happy to be in the hat. And on a night where former Fulham man Jack Grimmer was voted man of the match by the Wycombe admin, I'm delighted to be joined by two Jacks of my own. Jack Kelly, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And Jack Collins, hello.
Hello, Sammy. How's it going?
Good, thank you. Jack Grimmer was all right last night, wasn't he?
Fantastic. What about everywhere you go, always take Jack Grimmer with you?
Is it true Jack's a Fulham fan?
I mean, I know that his family were always around the club, and you know there was a lot of love, you know, within the stands, etc. There was a lot of times where they were within the away ends and stuff. So I don't know if it's kind of adoption as opposed to, you know, born a Fulham fan, but I think that there's definitely a real soft spot there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting last night that Corley and Jack got a great ovation. Interested to know how that ovation would have gone if we'd have got knocked out.
Yeah, I did think that. I did think that. I was like, it's all fun and games that they can come over now that it's like everyone's breathed a sigh of relief. But yeah, it was lovely to see them come over, and lovely to see Corley kind of grab Jack and make sure that they came over together as well. I thought it was a really lovely moment.
Yeah, let's do some 3-word reviews from last night. JC, what you got?
Okay, all right. Chris Harris said, still in the competition, which I thought was excellent. Jake Wilgoss, Arise, Benjamin Lecomte. Brian Head said, Lecomte is an upgrade. Random Fulham stuff, I really like this. Could have been Grimmer, which I thought was really fun. Rob with King's Coronation Soured. Chris with Up for Lecomte, which was kind of thereabouts. Yeah. Mark Mandel, Walking Pace Disgrace, which I enjoyed. Toby Penty with Wandering into Quarters. Sammy Fine Silva with Le Competent Goalie, which I thought was going to be the winner. But Sammy, you pick one out of the Instagram as well from Isaklo, which was Wycombe, we conquered. Which, I mean, conquered. The only reason I was like, ooh, conquered feels a bit strong after what happened at Adams Park yesterday. But very, very good.
It's one of those that almost, it looks better written down, doesn't it? We come, we came, we conquered.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well put together. Huge fan of an ascending tricolon as well.
Yeah, it's too good. It's too good. Well done, Izakio. Right, let's get into the game. JK, we're through, and me and you were chatting before we started the pod, and that was your key takeaway, wasn't it? It's just like, we made it. So all of the analysis and the fallout, which we'll do on this pod, but we came, we conquered.
Quite literally. I think all the pre-match chat was just, we need to stop the rot and we need to stop this run of...
Have we stopped
defeats.
the rot?
Well, I suppose... Ish, we have, yeah. And, you know, I was speaking to, you know, Joe Sanson before the game, and we were like, you know, 2-0 will do, things like that. And suddenly the game changes 4 minutes in, you're 1-0 down to a Squally Woodrow banger. And then the expectation changes, you know, you're going to have a lot of the ball, a lot of territory. And it's basically, well, we need to find a goal quickly and then try and adapt to that situation and turn the game around. And I knew what was going to happen. They were going to put everyone behind the ball, and we're going to have to huff and puff. But I think the game basically panned out exactly, or especially the first half, panned out exactly how I expected it to once they went ahead. Lots of right-hand side with Traore, lots of stuff on the left with Kevin, lots of balls into the box, lots of headers away, a couple of free headers there. And Fulham create quite a lot, or they created a fair amount in the first half especially, and obviously in the second half as well. But it's just like, can't take our chances at all when we get presented with them. I mean, free header for Raul, free header for Castagna wide. It was a frustrating watch. And then I was getting like notifications coming through. Brentford 3 up at Grimsby, Reece Nelson scored, and I was like, why did they make it look so easy and we can't? It was very, very frustrating to watch at times. Booed off at half-time, which hasn't happened since Southampton away. We then came back to win that game, and we got through last night. It was just a case of, we have to get through. We have to, you know, stop the rot, like I said, and we basically did it just about.
Yeah, Corley's goal, Jack. It's a great strike. I was right behind it. If it didn't hit a net, I think it would have hit me. So, I mean, I think Benjamin Lecomte, maybe. I don't know if I can blame Benjamin, especially for what happened later.
No. But you could you take the individual moment, right? Like, as in, I still think he's a little bit blindsided. I'm not sure why. I think it's Diop pulls his leg out of the way of the strike. In the build up, we're sloppy giving it away. I think keeper's a little bit blindsided by it. So, as in, should he do better? Maybe a little bit. Equally, he's just come in for his first game in what, 6 weeks? Like, it's the first couple of minutes of the game. Admittedly, and hands up, I actually missed this live because it took far longer to get from Maidenhead to Adams Park than I was expecting. So we were walking up towards the ground and we heard the place erupt. It was like, right, great, fantastic. That's definitely not us. And but you watch it back, and I think that there is an element in that build-up of how. It all seems fairly routine. The ball's bobbling around in the midfield. Just win it. Get first to the ball. And that's, I think, the thing that frustrates me. It's a great strike. Could Diop do better? Could Lecomte do better? Maybe, in both of those occasions. But it shouldn't have got to that situation in the first place. The fact is that we weren't able to, get a foot on the ball and stamp our authority on the game straight away. And look, sometimes you get these where a team is always going to come out as underdogs and kind of try and get at you in the first 5 minutes. But one of the hallmarks of Fulham down the years under Marco Silva has been okay, you have your moment. It's okay. We'll deal with it. And we just didn't yesterday. And look, that's the kind of thing that can happen. Is there an element of our own fault towards the end of it? Yeah, but I think that the main fault for the goal should come from the lack of ability to just get a foot on the ball and put some control in the midfield before it even bobbles to Corley Woodrow to hit the shot.
Yeah, and I think that if any blame should be placed for that goal, I think it's the midfield. I mean, Fred, who's here pushing the buttons, said that could Kearney not have closed, and Kearney kind of watched it all happen a few meters away, and there was no urgency. It felt to me a little bit, JK, that I just felt like the unfamiliarity of everything just took Fulham a while to adapt to it. And I think Wycombe made the faster start, really. And just everything about it last night. I mean, I think it may be the darkest football stadium I've ever been to in my life. And especially because I was quite low down, I felt like I was at pitch level, and you could just feel like it was an unfamiliar team, unfamiliar surroundings, and probably players that get more time in the Premier League. Wycombe were very quick to close down space and they were quite in your face. It just felt like in that first 5-10 minutes we weren't up for the challenge, and that's sort of what Marco alluded to as well, really, that we just started so poorly.
I mean, 7 changes to the team, and a player in Kevin who only making his second start for the club since joining the club, and obviously Harrison Reed and TC in midfield is an unfamiliar midfielder than we usually see in the Premier League. Josh King, who didn't play at the weekend, comes in at number 10. Diop, who's come in for Anderson, and Jorge Cuenca, who didn't play on Saturday as well. And then you got Bassi playing out position at left back, and then Castagna right back. I mean, and then obviously Lecomte in goal. It was obviously a massively changed side, and usually
to a point though, Jack. Just on that. Lecomte obviously comes out of the team at the weekend, and you'd imagine the midfield pairing of Sasha and Sander come back in. Iwobi comes in somewhere, but I don't know how that's going to work. There is a chance that 6-7 of those players.
But when you're midfield two, I think that is such a fundamental.
I agree, but also it's Tom Kearney and Harrison Reed. They've played together a million times. It's not like it's
especially against this sort of opposition as well.
Especially against lower league opposition, right? I look at it. That's our starting number 10 in Josh King. Yes, he didn't play at he was dropped at the weekend in terms of starting, but he's been our starting number 10 all season long. Kevin's our club record signing. At the moment, we haven't got any real options on the right wing that aren't Adama because Chukwueze's injured and Wilson's injured. There wasn't as many. It wasn't we changed the entire 11 and it was a completely new set of players in order to rotate. This was forced as much as anything else. And this is there's a good 7 players there who I would expect 8 players who will feature in some way, shape or form against Wolves at the weekend.
We were in a really tough spot. 1-0 down after conceding late to Newcastle. 1-0 down to Wycombe. Fans still sort of making their way into the away, and I was thinking this is as tough as it's been under Marco. So I tweeted it after the game on Saturday after 4 defeats in a row, and then you go 1-0 down to Wycombe to a former Fulham player scoring a goal. It's such a tough spot, and I think the big moment for me was, the reaction to, I think it was Issa Diop got done down the left-hand side in the first half, and boos were cascading from the away end, and I was like, this is going to turn toxic. I mean, we're going to talk about Wolves later. You saw the scenes at Molineux on Sunday against Burnley, and I was like, this could be very similar situation for Fulham, and no real surprise, 4 defeats in a row, and if you're 1-0 down to Wycombe at half-time, and I tweeted at half-time, this is a massive, massive moment in the Silva era, where are we going to be one of those teams who lose on 4 games on the bounce, sitting just above the relegation zone, and then go out the cup to lower league opposition? Or are we going to, pull our socks up and have someone come up with a moment? And luckily, within 3 minutes of the second half, we did have that through Josh King. Really, really big goal, really big moment that changed the momentum of the game. But up until that moment, I was, for the first time in my role, in my job, I was fearing, and I was actually getting quite angry as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, the reaction at half time, there was, as JK just alluded to, there were boos a bit during the first half, and I knew what was coming as soon as that half-time whistle blew. What I thought was quite interesting is you'd think Marco would be critical of that. Marco really almost kind of like understood it in his post-match press conference. And there's always a debate about when fans boo their own team. And I didn't join in, but it's not that I didn't really agree with it. I did not agree with it. It's not really how I choose to vent my personal frustration.
Like the only time I've ever got to that point was that day at Brentford.
Yeah,
it was genuinely
like Jazz Richards.
Yeah.
But I do understand it, and I think Marco understands. The thing I always think is, at every club kind of that Marco's been, if Olympiacos are losing 1-0 to a team in the Greek third division, or if Everton are losing 1-0 away at Tranmere,
or Sporting were losing to a team,
you can guarantee they wouldn't be going like, oh, we shouldn't boo our own team at half time.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that Marco was about to give them a rocket either way. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so effectively what the fans did was probably reflect the sentiment that he was feeling in his head. And look, the first half was dreadful, and the second half was better. Like, there are caveats to this, but like the first half, watching Adama try and pull the same trick over and over and over and over again does my nut. Like, as in, there's also a level, I think, with Adama in the first half. My brother said this to me at half time. Last year, we played Manchester United at the Cottage, and Adama nearly got into a fight with Lissandro Martinez, because it was, of the nature of the game and how much it meant, right? Where's that? Where's that gone? And I think that you look at it, there was a moment in the first half where people lost their heads with Adama because the ball bounced between 2 Wycombe players and neither of them went for it. And you're like, you would have just been through there if you were paying attention, and you're just not. Yeah. And I think that there was a massive improvement in what Adama did in the second half, and that should be pointed out. But
he still had his moments.
No. It doesn't mean it was perfect, but like, as in, there was a little bit more drive and determinism about what he was trying to do. But the first half felt so repetitive. And yes, okay, there's a couple of crosses where he gets down to the byline and knocks it, and Raul should do better, especially with that one in the first half, which is a genuinely really good cross. But you're looking at a player there who, we've seen drive from inside into play. He's the kind of player that scares people when he starts to drive with the ball. And there feels like, I know there's the whole stop-start thing, and it's something that also like Marcus Rashford does. Like, it's a tactic, especially when you're that quick in terms of bursting out of the block. And I get it. You have to be able to mix that up at some point, right? Like, to be able to one, not show the defender what you're going to do every single time. And look, there's a world where they can't stop it. I totally get that. But I watched, just as an example, and I hate bringing up Brentford players as an example, but Michael Coyote against Liverpool at the weekend, right? Playing at right back and just driving across teams with like this unbelievable, he's a bit of a clunky footballer at times, but he drives across and people are like, whoa, no idea what to do with that. And I'm like, that should be something that we see from Adama. And it has something we have seen from Adama in previous years, and it appears to have just disappeared. He now seems to have this repetitive nature of going down the same flank over and over again.
I have a theory on Adama. I think he plays much, much better with Kenny Tete.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think he struggles with Timothy Castagna, because against Newcastle, I thought that Adama was pretty good. And yes, Dan Burn was a decent opponent for him, but I think Tete just supports him and backs him up, and they just seem to have a better chemistry.
He also takes the overlap far more, and it does kind of take a defender away, etc. Whereas Castagna likes to pivot himself on, if you're looking at the 6-yard or the 18-yard box, Castagna likes to pivot himself right on the corner of where the box kind of meets, if you will.
Yeah.
And there was a moment in the second half where Adama was like sort of inside, and Castagna was picking up his normal position just on the edge there. And Adama had sort of gone to go wide, and the ball runs out of play. And Adama turns around to him and is like, what are you doing? He's like, well, that's what Timothy Castagna does every time. Like, as in, and he's a right back, so I have less issues with his kind of nature of the being, because he's not trying to bamboozle a defender in the same kind of way. So I think it's just worth pointing out, because like there does feel an element with Adama where he seems to kind of only trust himself to do that one stop start, burst past and cross it in. And at the moment, like he's not being supported by players who are in the box and getting on the end of those. And I totally accept that. But there is a level of it that I look at and be like, you are a terrifying player at full pelt. And we're just not seeing that regularly whatsoever with him this season. And maybe that's just getting older. Maybe it's that he's not at the peak of his powers from a physical perspective. I've seen people say you look back at his Barcelona era or even like his most scary Wolves era, he wasn't quite as big as he is right now in terms of strength. And maybe there is an element of that where he's less comfortable like shifting himself in the same kind of way. He's not maybe as quick as, he's still incredibly quick, let's be clear, but like maybe there's not that kind of rapid acceleration to the point where he can carry it for a longer period anymore. I don't know what it is. And again, he was better in the second half. But there is just a real frustration with that lack of a final ball or a lack of ability to open up an end product for yourself.
It's for me, it's a confidence thing. I mean, we as Fulham fans, it's happened, for years and years. We always have a scapegoat in the team. Whether it be Josh Onoma, whether it be Andres Pereira, and now it's Adama Traore. I mean, literally, because I'm so close to the away end in the press box yesterday, I can hear individual words of what Fulham fans are saying. And every time it was Traore on the ball, whether it be first half, second half, groans. Genuine groans, because they're like, oh, don't give the ball to him, he's not going to do anything. And he did put in a couple of decent crosses at times last night. Some nice balls.
There was one for Kusiasari at the end, actually, which she was very unlucky not to get on the end of.
And the thing is, I asked Mark about this last week, and I was like Traore's had a difficult start to the season. He got, put in against Villa in the number 9 position completely out of nowhere. The game against Arsenal, he was they had so many men behind the ball, we couldn't do anything. And I said, does Adama Traore work better when he's running into space? Obviously knowing what the answer's going to be. And he was like, yeah, of course he does. Like, and I said, well, a game against Newcastle, you're going to get a little bit more space on the break with Newcastle trying to bring the game to us. Do you think then we'll see the best of Traore? And he said, we obviously want Traore in those sort of areas, getting a bit more space, playing on the counter-attack, and that's when he can run. That's when he can open up space, create danger, and put fear into opposition players. And of course, again, last night you're going to be up against an opposition that puts every man behind the ball. And again, it's that sort of shuffle that we see. It's almost like the Frederick shuffle from Adama Traore, like that turn of pace. And when he's got the ball in close control, in close proximity, he can't really do much with it. And when it was against Arsenal, he had the ball on the right hand side and he shuffled it all the way inside on the left. I was like, just fucking pass the ball. Just pass the ball. And it happened against Villa. He holds on to the ball for too long. There's 3 opportunities where to pass the ball to Iwobi during that game. One of them ends up being John McGinn scoring because he doesn't play the pass quick enough. And he's become a bit of a scapegoat. Let's not lie. He's become a bit of a scapegoat. And that is going to affect his confidence. And for me, it's obviously disappointing to see. But if we had Chukwueze on that right-hand side, obviously he was so promising. He has been really promising in the cameos we've seen him so far for Fulham. I think we'd see a bit more success on that right-hand side. But Traore, for me, he's still a pro footballer, and right now he's not producing what we need from him.
Yeah, let's move on. Obviously, a great goal from Josh King.
Yeah,
I actually thought it was a header. And said so on the quick take, and then found out in the replay it was actually a really nice flick. I was there. A lot of people hadn't made it back from the bar at half time to see that goal. I actually did see it and still just thought it was a header. I just assumed. Nice goal for Josh. Great moment for him, and a good corner from Kevin, which was promising. Second half, we all know what happened. It was wave after wave of Fulham attack, but there wasn't really any moment where I feel like Norris in the Wycombe goal was truly troubled, other than I think in the 93rd minute where Kevin had a shot and it was cleared off the line.
TC had a nice effort as well. It was tipped over.
Yeah,
and Kevin had one. Actually, to be honest, I thought we worked the keeper in some actually much better scenarios in the second half. There was obviously the Josh one with the half turn that he kind of comes out that he screws a little bit wide, and it's hard to watch because he's done the hard bit. Like the really difficult bit is to take that turn in float, and he's such a wonderful footballer in that.
Style, that
he really is good at that. Like the way that he accepts the ball under pressure and sort of accelerates out of it. The shot isn't great, but it's one of those kind of things will improve. There was a Kevin shot. We had that spell, and actually this is maybe the annoying bit about the second half. We had that spell after the goal where it was kind of all Fulham, like driving forward, real intensity, and that's what I say about Marco giving them a rocket at half time, right? Like you saw the response. Yeah. And Cess coming on helped as well in that respect. I think him and Kevin worked quite nicely on that left-hand side, although I still think we hugely miss the like game-stretching pace of Anthony Robinson, as good as Cess has been. Like, there is an element here where you're kind of looking at it and thinking, you know, Fulham have done this for 10 minutes, and I appreciate that you can't keep up the verve of intensity for a full 45. No one can do that, right? You have to have ebbs and flows. But we had sort of 5 minutes there where Kevin forces a save. There's a couple of, and then we sort of step off the pace again, and the game goes back to a state where Wycombe can have players behind the ball, and they're quite comfortable in that block. And look, we haven't really given any praise to Wycombe yet. There were some really, really impressive individual performances. I thought Jack Grimmer was excellent on the right-hand side, although he had more trouble when Cess came on to help Kevin in those areas. There was a midfielder, Ewan Henderson, who I thought was absolutely everywhere. And also, I really liked Sam Bell coming back and doubling up on that left-hand side. I thought he covered the fact that Fulham were trying to work that in those areas really nicely. So credit where it's due, especially to those three, I thought. But it just felt frustrating that Fulham stepped off again, and we didn't really step that intensity back up until sort of the 80th minute. And I wonder if we'd been able to keep that up for another 5-10 minutes, if we'd broken the deadlock, if the game would have cracked open to a space where we could exploit a little bit more.
You're completely right. And the spell just after we scored, it was intense. It was, and then the second half just sort of passed us by a little bit, and suddenly I look at the time, I go, there's only fucking 10 minutes to go here, we need to score. And Rao went off, and then obviously there was an injury to a Wycombe player as well, so there was a bit of a stop-start nature to the second half, but yeah, the intensity did drop off, and it only felt as if the final 5-10 minutes, we were looking at the clock and going, right, we need to score.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. Well, we came
and
close.
I do think there's an element of the second half, like, I don't want to defend the team. We were in a difficult position. No, nights like last night can happen. Yeah. It went to penalties, and that is, and I said this in the quick take, it's part of the beauty for me of the Carabao Cup. I love that it goes to penalties after 90 minutes. Yeah. I think it makes for a better...
I didn't yesterday.
No, I would have loved some extra time yesterday. Actually, no, I don't know
Probably
if I would.
Not, actually. Yeah.
I think it's one of the best things that they've done to the Carabao is make it go to penalties after 90 minutes. It gives the League One side something to cling on to, and in the final 10 minutes you knew that was all they wanted. They weren't interested in trying to win the game, really. They knew that the tantalising prize of not a 50-50, because I don't think it is 50-50, but at least a 60-40 chance of beating a Premier League team is there if you can just make it to penalties. So to penalties we went, and Benjamin Lecomte saves the first one. There's then a string of pretty good penalties from both sides, actually. Iwobi's incredibly lucky.
Just about,
and then
but it's hit with conviction, right? Like, so, and this is something, like, you look at some of these penalty saves, yes, he's a little lucky that it clips the wrist rather than, hitting the glove, right? But you get lucky with those things because if it's hit with such conviction. And you compare that to something like Cess's, right? And I don't want to get at him or get ahead of you here, Sammy, but like where it's relatively tame, like you strike that same ball with that conviction, like there is a chance it goes under the keeper, it hits a glove and goes in if you believe in your strike almost. And same with Kusiasare, right? Where weird penalty, but he telegraphs it. Like, I think that what you see with the Iwobi's, and even with this Diop's near the end, like he's hit with such force, so like keeper getting a hand to that is like very unlikely to keep it out unless it's pure. And I think there is something in that.
Yeah. I mean, Sessegnon, I wasn't surprised to see Kusiasare miss because he just looks like he's lacking so much confidence. Cess, though, I was backing Cess. I really was. I just he strolled up, and I was dumbfounded by that one because I would just bet my house on Cess.
The one crumb of comfort I'd take from the Cess miss is that no Fulham fan's going to get on his back because he's a fan's favourite.
The entire away end like erupted into a chorus of "and here's to you, Ryan Sessegnon" after he missed, which is rare.
It wouldn't have happened if it did happen to Yona Kusiasare, and that's the thing. And then the narrative is like, well, now Yona Kusiasare's got the chance to make his name as a Fulham player by scoring the winning penalty, and he takes a bizarre penalty. I think, like you say, he telegraphs where he's going. Mitrovic did that a lot, where he basically made it very obvious where he was going, and Mitrovic, that's why.
Do you know what it reminded me of? Rodrigo Muniz missed the crucial penalty in the Carabao Cup against Leeds, and you just knew. And, you know, Muniz has obviously moved on from that moment. Hopefully Kusiasari will in his whole career.
There's a level of what we saw from Kusiasari last night that looked a lot like early doors Rodrigo Muniz, didn't it? Like there was he runs in a very strange manner. But like the fella behind me just kept shouting, "Big, tall and awkward, big, tall and awkward." And I was like, it's fair enough, actually. Yes, it seems to be spot on in terms of what you're looking for. But like, there was an element of like what he did and the way he got about that would have opened up spaces for other people. And actually, like a lot of people came away from that, I thought, and were like, well, that's why we haven't played him, etc. I actually didn't mind it as a cameo because I thought that he kind of stretched the pitch. He charged around. It wasn't that effective. He looks a little bit clunky. He should have been more on his toes for the Adama cross that comes in, which he should do better with. And the penalty's bad, right? Like full stop. But as a cameo from like the off-ball work, I didn't think it was that bad. And actually having someone who can get on and occupy defenders, etc., especially with Rodrigo out at the moment, I think is going to be an important element for us. So I don't think Marco will have been as kind of, oh, I told you so about that performance as perhaps some fans were.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, Issa Diop has the third chance, and that's what you got to do. You know, Harry Maguire style in the Euros final, just smash bang one.
Knew he'd score.
Yeah, I was very confident.
Issa,
it was going in or it was going over the stand. There were the two options.
I don't know why, but he rocks up to a penalty. Harry Maguire is the best actually comparison there. Where he's
just wallop it in, and that's what you got to do. You know, you look at the penalty that Sessis is tame and Kusiasari's is poor, and you just got to go for height and power, and you're likely going to score with the amount of power you put behind the shot. And I want to make a point on Issa Diop. I thought. I tweeted about this earlier. I want to make 2 points if that's okay. Issa Diop, in terms of leadership last night, was fantastic. You know, Josh King does this incredible foul, like unbelievable. Like it actually probably could be a red card. You know,
I didn't think it was that dangerous.
You know, because he genuinely had no intention of playing for the ball. It was just so cynical that it could have gone from yellow to red.
It was one of those that we've had that debate before, whether like tackles like that should be an orange or a sin bin or something like that. Because it was completely cynical. But
and you know, up in arms. You know, the Wycombe bench up in arms, the fans up in arms, and Diop immediately comes over and sort of shields him from any sort of onrushing Wycombe players. And I thought that was fantastic to see because you know Josh is only a young kid and you know he's small and you know he could get bullied by those Wycombe players. And then another point on Josh King. You know, I said earlier with a player coming up with a moment, he obviously scores, but I thought he was playing beyond his years last night incredibly. In terms of
is that his first 90 minutes?
Oh, is it?
I think it might be.
Could be actually, yeah. I found it quite interesting how he didn't sort of step up for a penalty, but also at the same time played brilliantly beyond his years. That, like you say, the half turn and the shot wide, fantastic.
If anyone was going to score and break that deadlock, it did feel like Josh King was that player for me. It was
an incredibly mature performance. Even in the first half, he won the ball high up the pitch and created something. And just a player who is showing all the attributes to be a top player in all facets of the game. You know, going forward in midfield when you have to take down a man, he takes down a man. And I really like that. You know, he's not just some like Bambi on ice sort of kid that's come out through the youth academy and doesn't really rabbit in the headlights. He's completely taken this season by storm so far. Should have had a goal at Chelsea, obviously. I won't let that go ever. But he scored last night. He fully deserved it. And what a moment for the academy as well to have Seth Ridgen on the bench and Josh King scoring. I mean, we were sat here almost a year ago.
And Jack Grimmer and Corley Woodrow.
Yeah, it was a proud night at Motspur Park.
Made at Motspur Park, it was.
But we were sat here a year ago talking about Josh King going to Portugal, and you know, in pre-season, like last season, and now he's starting over Emil Smith Rowe. Okay, he's injured, but he was starting over Emil Smith Rowe, and yeah, he's got the world at his feet, and I'm so excited about him.
I think the final word in part one needs to be for Monsieur Lecomte.
Yeah.
3 big saves. And I was confident going into that shootout that he'd be all right. I don't know why, but I just had that feeling. And we all know, I think, especially because there's a direct comparison to what happened last year with Stephen Bender and the 17 penalties that flew past him at Deepdale. And I actually just thought, look, okay, could have he arguably done a little bit better for that first goal? Possibly. I still don't personally think that. I think you're right that he was quite unsighted. What I'm wondering now, Jack, bit of a hypothetical. If we go further, do we have a cup keeper here?
Yeah, like I think he's done nothing to suggest that he would not keep his place.
Carabao Cup final, Benjamin Lecomte starts.
I mean, I think you get to a level, right? But right now, quarterfinals, yeah, I think he keeps his place. And you have to look at the situation as it arises, right? Like I think that you'd have to examine that closer to the time. But like he hasn't really put a foot wrong, has he? Like in terms of what we've seen in the cup.
Yeah.
Like, there's not been anything to criticise hugely. He was excellent in the penalty shootout. I did see a few Wycombe fans being like, he's come off his line like 3 times.
Well, the Wycombe players, I think it was, I'm not sure which, it was maybe his second save. The Wycombe players watched the replay on the big screen and tried to appeal to the assistant referee to say, look, he came off his line.
Yeah.
And for a second I thought, oh no, they're going to make him retake it. And I was like, no, wait, no VAR. That can't happen.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something
that's
to consider because we probably will be playing with VAR in the next round.
Yeah.
It ended up as a penalty shootout. But look, you only do what you can do, right? Like, he was very good. I thought he was pretty comfortably commanding in terms of the way that he took balls in the area. I didn't think there was much to criticise about yesterday's performance. I thought he was very good.
I thought what was so weird is, Silva's been here for 4 and a bit years now. This is his 5th season. We've had 6 penalty shootouts under Marco Silva. And within that, we've won 4 of them. And within those 4, we've dealt with the shootout and the pressure of the shootout incredibly well. We scored every penalty against Spurs. We missed one with Bobby D. Cordova-Reid against Everton, but then still came out winners because Onana decided to tap it at the keeper. The one against United, we score all our pens and then Leno makes 2 big saves. And then the one what happened last night with Lecomte coming up.
And I still maintain that against Preston, there was nothing wrong with our penalty taking.
I know.
In a normal situation, we'd have won that penalty
we had a pile
shootout.
of wet napkins in goal.
Yeah. So, and yeah, we lost that Leeds one, but I think went to sudden death. You are right. There was for years we didn't get penalty shootouts. And also you made a good point as well, Jack. 4 consecutive seasons now where Fulham have reached a quarter-final of a cup competition.
At least a quarter-final.
And that's to be applauded.
And obviously the FA Cup to come. And look, the draw's going to, everyone will know now what we've got in the draw, but the opportunity that we could get Cardiff, we could get maybe Swansea if they beat Man City, we could get, 4.
I think that's hopeful.
4 Premier League teams will go tonight, but that means 4 will progress.
I am almost certainly it's going to be a big team that we face.
I'll take Chelsea away. Go on. Do it.
What I would quite
Revenge
like
mission.
would be amazing.
We haven't had a cup draw against a London team where we've been able to take that kind of like 6,000 allocation for years.
Yeah, not since Chelsea, the penalty shootout, I don't think.
Yeah. I would love us to have that opportunity. And obviously you can take 6,000. You can take 6,000 to United, but Fulham are never going to do that. But if you got a London team, or if you got Brighton or somewhere reachable, it would be amazing to go and take that kind of 25% capacity that you're allowed to do, away capacity that you're allowed to do in the cups, and just we haven't had that opportunity.
This might be like bias, but when Fulham scored last night, like I said, I was quite close to the away end. We scored and I think we got a corner or something straight after. There was a roar from the Fulham fans that I have never heard ever in my life before in terms of the intensity, the come on sort of roar.
I think there was a lot of first half frustration being vented.
Obviously, it's from the frustration, and then it's like, oh shit, now we've scored. Let's fucking go on and win this game. And obviously, we got through by penalties, but it was good. The Fulham fans actually, they made a big difference last night. Both whether they booed and they also got behind the team. I think that it was incredibly effective. And when the Fulham fans want to be effective, they can be very, very good. Let's bring the same to the Cottage on Saturday. It's a huge game.
Yeah, all right, well, we're going to discuss that next. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Sammy here with Jack Kelly and Jack Collins. I've got an email here, JC, that's going to do my job for me to promote the wonderful company that is My Kind of Cruise, the world's first cruise booking app and website. It's from Patrick Blunt, who says, "Hello, Fulhamish. I couldn't help notice on the Thursday Club last week your idea of taking a cruise up to Newcastle. However, the concept of taking a boat to an away game is not as far-fetched as you think. After being given the green light to work from home this week, me and my girlfriend decided to take my 50-foot narrowboat from Kingston to Maidenhead. Yesterday evening, we caught the match bus, great touch from Wycombe Wanderers, from Maidenhead to Adams Park, where we watched our beloved Fulham scrape through by the skin of their teeth. The journey took 2 days days, done over the weekend, and was a little slow, but what we lacked in speed, we made up for in adventure. Highlights included cruising up the River Thames with the sun out, some great views of Windsor Castle, and seeing new places. Lowlights including watching the last 10 minutes of the Newcastle game whilst trying to navigate one of the many locks, and the fact we needed 2 more days to get back home. Would definitely recommend for the Fulham fans of leisure, maybe not so much the ones that have to be home for work the next day. Anyway, love the pod and keep up the good work. Cheers from Patrick.
Patrick is still travelling back as we record this. Fair dues. Shouts out to Patrick. That's wicked.
Look, if you like Fulham and you like boats, go to My Kind of Cruise, the world's first cruise booking app and website. Book yourself in for some winter sun, or get ahead and book your summer holiday. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser, a first-time voyager, they've got low deposits. You can search from any cruise in the world. Wherever you want to go, My Kind of Cruise has got you covered. Download the app from either the Google Play or Apple App Store, and if you go to mykindofcruise.com, use the code Fulhamish, you'll get an exclusive discount on your next cruise. Right, JC, let's dive into Wolves this weekend. Ooh, it's a biggie.
Oh yeah. I don't like throwing around 6-pointer, but when was the last time that Fulham were involved in a relegation 6-pointer?
Under Parker?
Probably.
It's been a while, right? So it does feel a little bit like one of those you're like, ooh, I didn't want to be back here anytime soon. And look, maybe that's far-fetched, and maybe it's a little bit early, and I take all of those things. But considering that Wolves haven't won a game yet in the Premier League, considering Fulham are coming off 4 defeats on the bounce, considering this opens up a potential period where Fulham could actually climb the table and get into a more kind of reasonable position for, I think, where we all feel the squad lies in terms of the strength compared to clubs around us. It's a huge game. And look, I know there's a lot of ill will kind of around the club at the moment. Or not ill will, or ill feeling.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look through our games this season, all of them in all competitions, I think if you told me, before the season, you went, predict how those games are going to come out, I think I'd probably be about where we are.
Yeah.
Like, I do think that that's not to say that the criticism is unfounded. I think that the performances in certain games have really kind of felt that they're uncomfortable, and I would have probably had us a point above where we are now. I think I would have had us to either nick a point away at a Bournemouth or an Aston Villa perhaps, but the truth is that we've kind of played to the level so far, and the frustration with that is that in recent seasons we've obviously been able to raise that and find some massive wins. Newcastle last season, home and away. You look at the games where Fulham have been able to nick points off, not even the big guns, but the teams who have spent more than us and have the capacity to do so. There's been very little of that so far this season, right? There's been precious for us to hold on to and hang on to as kind of that's a morale booster. And so suddenly we come into a period here, and this almost feels a little bit like Marco Silva's first season, right? Where what Fulham did was we did the business against teams around and below us, and that's what kept us up. It wasn't the punching upwards that we saw in recent seasons. And perhaps that's what we're going to see from Fulham again, a kind of back to basics approach where, we just beat the teams around us. And if we're going to do that, this is huge. It's a home game. And as Jack alluded to earlier, which I thought was a really good point. So, we saw Molineux at the weekend, and they lose that game to Burnley. And I want to speak about that in a minute because it was an interesting game from a neutral and from them as our next opponents. But also, Fulham lose at the weekend, the Cottage is going to be absolutely spiteful. Like, it is going to be toxic. And to avoid that is a big thing because I think it changes the narrative of the season so far. Fulham win this one and they pick up, maybe 3 or 4 points over the next 2 games after that. And suddenly I think that the depiction of the league table, but also the mood around the club changes a little bit. Because right now it feels a little bit all over the place. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of frustration with the transfer windows, that players are either not living up to the expectations or that the wrong players were brought in the wrong positions. Centre midfielder, anyone. But in terms of just what we're putting together, I think that this would be a huge one. To come out of this week, okay, it's not been pretty against Wycombe in the Cup. And we've obviously done it by the skin of our teeth. But if Fulham, at the start of the week, if someone said to me, you'll be through into the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup and you beat Wolves at home, I would have said, thank you, good week. Yeah. And ultimately, we have the opportunity to achieve that. Now, Wolves have been pretty poor for long spells of this season, but I don't think they were as bad at the weekend as people are making out. And obviously, I totally get the frustration around Molineux. I'm not suggesting that Wolves fans are wrong to criticise criticise or to be frustrated at their team, because ultimately losing at home to Burnley is the kind of thing that ultimately puts you in a relegation scrap. But they were 2-0 down and some really appalling defending. They claw their way back into it at 2-2.
Some quite good centre-forward play at the same time as well.
Yeah, I mean, the second goal is absurd. Like, you know, that's the first goal, isn't it? You know, it's an incredible strike. But also, like, how he has that much space running in behind is also a little bit weird. But equally, you kind of look at it and say, okay, they clawed themselves back into it. The second half, they absolutely dominate. And then they get hit by a sucker punch right at the end. It can happen. The problem is it can't happen after you've gone 8 games without a win at the start of the season. Yeah. That's where you need those things to fall your way, and it didn't. But I think that to underestimate Wolves as a team that are, you know, hopeless is probably to do them a little bit of a disservice. This is still a side with good players in it. I don't think that they are playing to the best of their abilities. I don't think that Vitor Pereira is doing a particularly brilliant job at managing the squad he has available to him. And also I saw on Twitter this week that he'd made a burner account and started slagging off fans, which is never a great look. I mean, look, obviously unconfirmed, but I saw a lot of Wolves journalists being like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's him, which is never a good look, right? But equally, he's a manager now scrapping for his job. This is a team now scrapping to, like, not just for survival, but like for, I think this would be the worst start in Premier League history if they were to lose this weekend. So we're looking at it from that perspective as well. To underestimate a side with Jordan Strand Larsen in it, who I think is a wonderful, wonderful number 9, with Andre, who we pursued for years. There's really talented footballers in this side still. And look, we only need to look back to last season, where Wolves have gone on a pretty dismal start themselves. And we played the best half an hour that we'd played, I think, all season to that point, when Alex Iwobi had given us the lead with that screamer, and then completely and utterly collapsed and lost 4-1. There were circumstantial bits, fine, like Anderson went off the last 10 minutes when the 2 goals happened, but it was...
Oh, we should have put him in goal.
I knew you were going to say that.
But they also had Cunha and Guedes as well.
Yeah. But like, as in, Wolves were on a similarly poor start to the season, right?
I mean, I've got their fixtures here. It was a slightly different Wolves last season. Wolves last year had this incredibly tough start. They faced all of the big guns. They're away at Arsenal, and then their second game was at home against Chelsea. They had to go to Villa. They went to Manchester City, and then games 9, 10, 11, and 12. And our game was the 12th game of their season. Before that, they'd got a valiant 2-2 draw away at Brighton. They'd drawn 2-2 against Palace. They'd won 2-0 against Southampton. They'd already got that first win, the monkey off their back, and then they came to us. It was a weird...
But we were flying. We are not flying this year.
It was a weird time to face them, though, and Gary O'Neill temporarily galvanised them, and we were just slight victims of individual brilliance. I mean, ultimately, Mateus Cunha played us off the park that day. I think, JC, it's just going to... We've got to get over the line here, and I think it might be quite ugly, but I have a funny feeling it might be 2-1, and we will concede, because we always seem to concede. But I think we've just got to get over the line here, but it might not be the prettiest win we've ever had in our lives.
I looked at some stats over the international break. 3 clean sheets for Fulham in this calendar year in Premier League is absolutely outrageously bad. The record's not great. I remember the game we played against Wolves at Craven Cottage 2 years ago. I think we were in a tight spot where we couldn't score goals. We had Vinicius and Raul Jimenez, who was out injured. Vinicius wasn't firing. And we won 3-2 with 2 penalties, 2 very dodgy penalties for Willian to score. Last minute goal, and they pegged us back twice after we led twice, I believe, and that felt like a big night. And then we went on to, I think, win 5-0 after, I think, Villa lost away from home. But it felt like we were back. What I'm really interested about this weekend is, obviously, the Fulham-Wolves, huge game. But if we beat Wolves, they are #cut adrift. Completely cut adrift, depending on other results. Nottingham Forest play Manchester United, who are on an upward trajectory, 3 wins in a row. West Ham home to Newcastle, who obviously have had a morale-boosting win against Fulham, and I think they won the previous one as well. West Ham are in dire straits right now. There is a scenario where if Fulham win and got up to 11 points, if Forest lose, if West Ham lose, if Wolves lose, we could sort of look behind us and go, oh, there's a mess behind us. We're sort of clear of that for now. So that's really, really important. But Wolves have been well, I can't believe it. You know, Victor Pereira basically going to the pub to Spoons a year ago, having drinks with all the Wolves fans, and now a year later they're hounding for him out. He signed a new deal at the beginning of the season, and
That was mental.
it's crazy. It's crazy. I've got a stat
I mean,
here
it was 4 games in, wasn't it? They'd lost all 4,
Yeah.
and then
The dreaded vote of confidence.
they went, oh, let's give him a new contract. That feels really sensible.
The thing is, his impact when he first came in the club was very, very good. And then we beat them, obviously, 2-1, scoring in the first minute and then the first minute of the second half as well. That was a great night. But I've got this stat here about Marshal Munetsi, right? So Munetsi has yet to complete more than 14 passes in any league game this season. Yesterday, he racked up, I'm guessing this was against Burnley, he racked up a pass accuracy of 44% with just 4 passes made. João Gomez came on for 20 minutes and completed 24 passes. Then quote tweeted, just to jump on the back of this, Munetsi has completed 69 passes this season in 9 games. That's 7.6 passes per game, 8.9 passes per 90. He completes less than 1 pass every 10 minutes of football. How Pereira keeps picking him is beyond words. That's ridiculous. That is shocking. I think Wolves have good individual players. João Gomez, Andre, Bellegarde, Strand Larsen. Haven't seen enough of this Arias guy, and I'm not too impressed with their back 4. They obviously lost Semedo and they lost Ainori, which is very, very key. Hoyvier, who had a really good loan spell in the Championship last season, he did well last season, has come in. They've got Santiago Bueno, Hugo Bueno, and yeah, they just look completely lost. And their fans, who are very, very vocal. We saw, like I said, at the end of the Burnley game, it was ugly. Like, that is ugly scenes. I wouldn't expect to see Marco Silva and Raul Jimenez at the front of the Hammersmith end having those same sort of scenes if we were to lose on Saturday. But it's toxic, and if we add to that, you know, regardless of what happens tonight against Chelsea in the Cup, if we add to that and get onto 11 points and they're on 2, I'm feeling better about the situation. But we have to win. We have to score goals. Our top goal scorer in the Premier League this season is own goal.
Yeah. I think, Jack, for me, I am an advocate of this. We have as many points as I'd expect. Mm-hmm. The problem is that whole argument
falls apart.
Absolutely falls apart if you don't beat Wolves. That's the thing for me, and that's why there is just no other option other than to get a victory. Sadly, injuries are not helping us.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. Like, what does this team look like?
Well, Raul went off injured. It didn't look like he went off. You know this best, JK. He went off. I didn't
see it.
Oh right.
he went off and sat on the bench though.
Yeah.
He didn't go down the tunnel. I think, which is usually a pretty good sign when a player gets. You know, I think it looked like an impact injury. If I'm being honest,
I think we're safe enough to assume that Raul probably, just because we need him.
He just looks knackered. That's the problem, and this is the issue. The other issue with having Muniz out at the moment is that Raul looks absolutely shot. And he's having to play 90 minutes because obviously there is an element that Marco doesn't trust Ona Kutsisare. And look, fine, like, after you can come to your own conclusions on that after yesterday. But I think he's going to have to use him at some point, because I don't know if Raul has another 90 minutes in him, after what happened in midweek. And that's going to be interesting. I was a little bit surprised that he didn't start Kutsisare yesterday, and then at 45, if it wasn't going well, bring Raul on for half of it. But I assume the logic was, let's try and be 2-0 up by half time, and then we can make that swap. So maybe it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But the issue is that we don't have many options on the right. We have 2 options on the left that both feel like they have to play, in Kevin and Iwobi. King has to play, considering what he did yesterday, and that he looked like the sole bright spark. Raul has to play. You'd imagine it's Sander and Sasha. But does that mean one of Iwobi or Kevin has to play on the right? Does it mean that Iwobi plays in the 10 with King on the right? Like, I think it would be Adama. Or does Adama stay on that side? But then who drops out? Because I think you have to play Kevin. I think you have to play Iwobi, and I think you have to play King.
For me, it all points to Iwobi starting again. The quotes I'm hearing from Marco Silva about Kevin, he's not quite ready. He hasn't quite understood that's doing a disservice. It's more of a case of we're still working with him. He's still adapting, etc., etc. It might take more time for him to start, etc., etc. But Iwobi's tried and trusted. The fact of the matter is, he went to Nigeria, came back, and went straight back into the team against Arsenal. Everyone's like, I was listening to the Fulham fans against Newcastle all the way up in the gods, and they were singing "Get Kevin on" after 25 minutes. And there's a clamour for Kevin to start.
He was good against Newcastle, I thought.
Yeah, no,
better
brilliant.
than he was against.
Brilliant.
Against
And that's the
Wickham. I thought
thing,
he was
Kevin
excellent.
gives us something different that we don't have. Iwobi on the left-hand side is great, but can be quite predictable in the way he cuts in and puts these little slow balls into the box.
Without Robinson, I feel like it's far less effective as well.
Absolutely agree. And then suddenly that spell in the game against Newcastle, I'm sure you've already covered it, where we're in the where Iwobi's playing in the 10 and he's absolutely phenomenal and we're playing brilliantly. Then he gets pushed out to the right-hand side, King goes into the 10 and we lose everything in midfield because Lukic is forced off because he's tired and he's replaced by TC. We go on to lose the game. I think this
lineup for me picks itself. I think you're spot on. I think Kevin will drop to the bench. I don't know if I agree with it, but I think he will. And I think that he sees Kevin as a great option off the bench. And you saw it again. I think actually the fact that he was so good against Newcastle counts against Kevin starting here because I think Marco knows that it's the only option that he's got to actually change things up off the substitutes bench. So for me, I think it'll be Leno in goal. I think it'll be Sessegnon left. I think Cuenca will come back in, unless he was injured. Unless the reason he came off at halftime was his injury, but he didn't look injured, and I actually reckon that might be because he was thinking, "You're going to play for me against Wolves."
He's so composed on the ball.
We
Isn't
needed
he?
more of an overlapping threat on the left-hand side with Kevin. That worked really well in the second half.
So I think it'd be Cuenca. I think it'd be Diop. I think it'd be Tete. I think you're right. It'll be Sasha and Sander. Even though people want Iwobi there, I don't think it will.
I would
be
love that, but I've given up asking for it.
Yeah, I think it will be Iwobi, King, Traore because I don't think there's anyone else, and then Raul, patched up Raul.
So then what does the bench look like? It's Kevin, Kusiasare,
That's
TC,
it.
Harrison,
It's crazy.
Seth.
Well, I think you'll have a misser on there.
Senga.
You have Castagna.
What will happen
And
is...
Bassi. Oh, well, I guess actually you'll have Calvin Bassi on the bench.
Yeah. And I think what will happen is basically we'll hit 65, 70 minutes. King will be replaced by Kevin. Iwobi will move into the 10 and will look really good in that area. And then it'll be reliant on, down the left-hand side to create those sort of opportunities, the overlapping runs of Sessegnon and Kevin to sort of come up with something. We need to be in a commanding position by that time. It can't be, let's bring on Kevin at 65 to try and find the winner. I'd love to be in a situation where Fulham are 1-up, 2-up by that time and we've at least tried to build on something rather than going all hell.
Well, but also opens up the game where Kevin can potentially play on, on the break and in transition, which would really help, nice. I think. Just on that, Jack, is there any chance we're going to see anyone back in terms of injuries that is, on the fringes?
It's interesting because Muniz is on the grass. I mean, I saw him on Friday through the socials, just sort of in training, and I was like, okay, so he's back working. Marco said that he was closer to coming back than Chukwueze. I'd imagine that maybe Joachim Andersen could maybe be involved, but again, it's a Diop's done very well within that. Harry Wilson, again, nothing serious. Smith Rowe, nothing serious. The only serious ones really are Chukwueze and Robinson, or long term, I should say. And with Robinson, I mean, I asked him about this the other day, and just can you give us a timescale? And he was like, no, I can't even give you a timescale. I was like, this is disastrous. Robinson is a player who's, for the last 2-3 seasons, been absolutely unbelievable in terms of output, in terms of assists, in terms of his attacking qualities and defensive qualities. And we're really, really missing him in that. Sessegnon's a great player, and I think the way he's adapted joining the club, he was unfit, he's built up his fitness, and now he's a huge part of this team. But the amount of strain that's going to take on him with no Robinson, he could burn out, and that's obviously a massive worry. And it gets to the point now, and me and Joe Sanson spoke about this the other day, it gets to January, if Robinson's still, I think by January he might be back, but there is a scenario where if he isn't, if he has to have more surgery, or I don't know what's going to happen with his knee, left back needs to be looked at in January, and we looked at we said Malacia on loan, which would be interesting. But it's a scenario which obviously I don't want to happen. But full credit to Sessegnon, who's come through, even in the last year, his progression's been absolutely fantastic. And regardless of what happened last night, he's been a real trooper.
But also, we'd be able to use him in different positions. Yeah. As in what we were just talking about there, about having no options on the right wing, right? It'd be ideal.
Did you say that before?
Oh, I did. Yeah. No, I actually said it before the pod. I said it could be feasible that you went Bassi at left back, and if you were really fed up with Adama, you could put Sessegnon on the right wing.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah, because when Sessegnon started playing further forward last season, he was on the right wing. Scored against Liverpool, came on against Manchester United in the Cup and played in that position, and was effective.
Why are you smiling at me?
Do you remember there's a clip, if you go back far enough on the Fulhamish socials, and you'll find it being like, I just feel like Seth should play right wing if he's going to play on the wing, because it would mean that he's arriving in the box on his favoured side to shoot. And then he scored obviously against Liverpool. He was excellent against United in the cup, and I was just like,
is that you that said it?
yeah.
This is fair play.
Jack loves nothing more than I
I hate to say I told you so.
Yeah, loves
It's
nothing.
my favourite thing in the world. It was also like, well, when we were talking about Marco and playing Wobie centrally, and then he came out in the press conference and was like, yeah, what do you want to drop King? And we're like, no one's asking for that. No one has asked him to drop King or Berger. We're like, we don't want him in the 6. No one is saying play Wobie in the 6. We're like, what if you played with a number 8 like we used to? Like you utilised in many a year going forward.
It was a bit of a strange situation, that, because I don't know if he understood what we were asking from him, or the guy James from Sky, the way he put the question to him, but he seemed quite offended that we'd suggested something that he probably already knew and already was aware of. It feels like Marco does like to sort of have things in control. He doesn't like to be told what to do, or to be told that someone else knows better, which is completely fair. Like,
that's fine.
He sees these players every day.
It was a bit of an odd flex though from Marco.
Yeah.
Because he was like, no, we won't be doing that. And then Iwobi played in the 10 against Newcastle, and then also in the 8 against Wickham. You were like, what are you doing?
He mentioned it 5 minutes later, saying that Iwobi can play in that position. I was like, but you just, I don't know what's going on. But since the 2 games since, he's played, he's played in midfield and done very well within that. And there was another point I wanted to make. Oh yeah, nothing would please me more if Fulham, let's say we won 2-0, but it's not about...
That means keeping a clean sheet.
Well, yeah,
I'd love
obviously.
a
But
clean
even if,
sheet.
let's just say it's 2-1 then, for argument's sake. Fulham need to manage the end of games better. I don't know if a point was made of this after Newcastle, but I was raging at the fact that we were so expansive in the final stages of the game against Newcastle, because they were on top of us. They were highly aggressive in their press. They brought on all these players, and yet we still tried to look for the winner. And within that, Bassi makes the mistake and we concede the goal. If we're just a little bit more conservative and hold on to what we have, 3 defeats in a row, get a point away at Newcastle, it's a good point, right? And we didn't do that. We went for the winner, which I at some aspects I admire that, because it's like, well, we're going for the win and we're away from home. We always want to win a game. But just understand the situation that we're in, and that a point would have been fine and deserved. And I want to be in a situation against Wolves where we're just seeing out time. We're in the lead and we're just sort of seeing out added time, and we don't make a huge panic about it. And that's what cost us at Newcastle, in my opinion. That's what cost us at Bournemouth as well.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
yeah,
I mean,
Wrong approach when we have the lead.
well, it's been
And we have the lead 100%.
Yeah.
Like at 1-1, especially with the way that things were opening up for Kevin and Adama in transition. I don't think we played it particularly
But
cleverly.
because of the 5-minute spell before that, with Tonali and all these chances, Bruno Gomes had a chance as well. Just be like, oh, actually, hold on. It's the 89th minute.
But it's
right?
like drop in and play the diags. You don't need to pass your way out of that.
No,
Like,
exactly.
all you need to do is find those diagonal balls, and keep your 2 wingers high. Drop the centre forward in, right? Like and give yourself a box in the middle, and then leave your 2 wide players high and wide, and have them in those spaces to grasp. It, like I totally get what you're saying. I don't mind us going for the winner. I mind us going for the winner in the manner that we did.
And then we end up losing, and it's 4 defeats in a row, and feel quite sad.
Let's do a couple of emails just to finish. This one from Jordan Harrison, who said, I imagine Adama will be a topic of discussion on the podcast this Thursday. Right you were. For what it's worth, I don't think he had as bad a game as everyone has made out, and respond well considering he was getting loudly booed at one point, which was slightly uncomfortable. However, I think where he loses fans and ultimately ends up becoming the scapegoat are in moments like the one midway through the first half. He loses the ball and then proceeds to stand on the halfway line, which allows Wycombe to have an overload and get into a dangerous crossing position. We defend well, but Wycombe recycle, and he's still not back to help. That's where he loses fans in them moments. Kevin sulked and threw his arms up much more than Adama in the first half, but in the one instance we lost it and Bassi was out of position, he sprinted back to get it. Them small moments of game awareness are where Adama needs to sharpen up. If he gives 100% in key moments both ways, then you are more inclined to forgive a misplaced pass.
Yeah.
Thanks for reading this short novel from Jordan.
I agree 100%.
He's
I
bang
actually
on.
think a lot of some of our good stuff, like good balls into the box, came from Adama on the right-hand side. And even in those tight spaces, he managed to wriggle away and put a ball into the box. There was that moment where he didn't track back, and it does feel uncomfortable. I said this earlier, Fulham always managed to find a scapegoat, always. And it is uncomfortable. Josh Onoma, who then even came up with big moments for Fulham in the past.
Maradona.
And Pereira, who obviously was a massive scapegoat. Now I'm seeing tweets like, "We miss Pereira."
Of course, we miss Pereira.
Well, this is going to be the most inevitable thing that was going to happen. If when you see Pereira pressing from the front with the striker and the aggressive way he presses, and we don't lose that with Josh King or Smith Rowe, whoever's in the 10, but it makes a huge difference when we don't have Pereira. I knew this was going to happen.
Do you know what we missed from Pereira yesterday? And
A goal.
Well, yeah. I think there were always criticisms over Pereira's goal performance anyway. But he whipped in flat balls. Like, the balls weren't, like, super loopy and up in the air. Like, he whipped in balls that people could attack. And, like, look at the amount of balls that we whipped in from either side, or even from, on the angle from the midfielders, that were just up in the air for the keeper to catch.
Yeah.
And, like, that in itself, it's not really something I was considering when we lost him. I was talking a lot about the pressing, about the aggression. But, like, watching it yesterday, I was like, just wish Pereira was just in that half space, just whipping him in with a bit of angle.
I don't know. That away end last night, I can just imagine if Andreas had been there, I feel like there would have been a lot of frustrations at the same time. We've literally had this question from Tom Ellam. It was the next one. Hi team, short and simple. Do you think we're missing Andreas Pereira? Was it under the radar just how important he was? So
useful body in midfield to be able to cover a number of positions. I know people didn't love him in central midfield, but as in he always put in a shift and we were allowed to rotate. It wasn't his first choice there, and he was never going to be, right? But having him now just to come off the bench in games where we're kind of chasing it and have someone who's more forward thinking that Marco is comfortable playing in that role,
Fred asked a great question before recording. He said, would you rather have Andreas Pereira this year or Tom Kearney?
TC for me.
I said TC.
Always.
I said Tom Kearney.
From my heart says Tom Kearney. My head obviously says Andreas
But
Pereira.
then I also looked at that performance that Tom Kearney put in for most of the game at the Vitality.
Yeah.
Andreas Pereira couldn't do that.
No,
Andreas Pereira might have tackled
what
Justin
you're
Kluivert.
effectively saying there. What you're effectively saying there is, what do we miss more of this year, or what do we prefer, control or aggression? And I think that this Fulham side lacks aggression more than it lacks control.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So thus, what you're asking for there, I think the answer is probably Andreas.
Just to finish off the point on Traore, he obviously stepped up to take a penalty, and I was like, if he misses this,
oh yeah,
it was a great pen. It was a really good
it was
pen.
the best pen of the night.
And
I guess he's a D. I don't know though. And Andreas, Adama's was on the inside net. You cannot get a more perfect penalty. To speak of Diop, my final email is from David Nicholson, who, by the way, David, I've got a bone to pick with you. David is the one who watched my quick take from my home office and said, said it,
the hostage cell.
Said it looked like a hostage cell. It's like I bought a camera and some lights and thought it looked quite nice, and he called it a hostage cell.
David, your $5 is in the post.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't jump on that one from the airport because my head was on the moon actually after that game.
Don't worry, David. I haven't thought about it all week.
Sammy's actually got the paintbrushes out. He's redoing the home office. Well done, David. A big fan.
I didn't
big
have
fan of your work. Keep it up.
I didn't have a rant in the Fulhamish WhatsApp group. None of that happened. David says, evening Fulhamish, as you wrote, that was a painful experience. I was thinking of doing a liked, didn't like match report, but I think the latter might have weighed too heavy. That said, I would have loved to see Kevin score in normal time, and I just wish JK had scored his pen. I have a thing about players not scoring them early in their career. Diop channeled his best Tossant impression from Goodison a couple of years ago, and fair play to him, a very good pen. Not too much beats a big central defender smacking in a winning penalty. I was at our previous cup game at Wycombe. Kit Simon's in charge, I think. A colleague's son was the fitness coach there, so we got a behind-the-scenes tour and post-match autographs from my daughter. A fun night. Fulham fans singing "We're Only Here for the Sunset." Not quite as much fun tonight, but quarterfinals, here we come. Best from David.
That was the first of two games we played against Wycombe in the space of a couple of
2
years.
years,
Do you remember who we scored the first one? Do you remember who scored?
Piazon.
Well, that was
Piazon and Adoy.
Yeah.
Oh,
front
who scored
post.
the first?
It was a front post header, which basically replicated.
Was it? Didn't Corley score?
It was Alex Kakanich, I believe.
I'd have been here all night until I'd have guessed.
Yeah, because Adoy
The
scored a header.
Piazon goal from the last time out was actually
a bit of a
really.
worldie.
I was at that game. It was a really, really good goal.
And
Yeah.
Adoy scored basically the same header he scored against Derby.
Yeah.
But it was in August, and then obviously we got the one in May as well.
It was an interesting ground last night. I think it's Wednesday afternoon. I think some fans are still just getting out the car park now.
Some are still on the boat back.
Yeah.
You know what? The last time I went to Wycombe, I'd been told beforehand that the two worst grounds in the country to get to were Reading and Wycombe, which is annoying because they're both like very accessible from West London, right? So I was kind of like, okay. And last time I remember being like, that wasn't that bad. And this time I was like, oh yeah, the worst. Like actually absolutely terrifying. So yeah.
I parked in one of the £5 car parks, not up at the stadium. I was like, not far off the industrial estate. Have you ever played that little board game, Rush Hour?
Oh yeah, we have to move all the cars.
We have to move the cars. I was the red car at the back of the car park.
Nice.
I was not told when I entered the car park at 5 o'clock that I would be not just double parked, I would be about 14 times parked at the back of it. There should have been some sort of warning of like, by the way, if you want to get out of this car park quickly, don't go there.
Mate, swing it straight by the entrance. That's the key.
Well, yeah, I didn't know they were going to do that. I thought it was just a normal car park that I could leave at my leisure.
The takeaway I got from my friend Umberto, Umberto, of course,
Yeah.
when we went home, he said, all I could smell during the game was sugar. It's because we're right next to a biscuit factory.
Yeah, it did smell of sugar.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely spot on.
I didn't smell that.
Yeah,
Just gonna
it's
get that
literally right next to the ground.
Yeah.
It was a good night. We're through. Let's see who we get in the next round.
Yep. All right. Thank you both for your time today. Jack, I assume we're going for Wycombe. We came.
I don't think we
conquered.
are.
What?
I like it, but like it feels very, very disingenuous to suggest that we conquered anything yesterday, if I'm honest. So I'm not going to go for that. I'm actually going to go for Chris Harris's still in the competition, which I think is just excellent.
All right. Justice for Izakio, but it is your choice. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Jack Kelly, Jack Collins, thank you very much. We'll be back after the Wolves game. Please say it's positive. There'll be a quick date. There'll be articles on the Fulhamish website, and then there will be a podcast on Monday. Have a great weekend. You whites.
You whites.